Okay, so we're going to have a look at the journey a child at Brownstone Juniors would take in order to develop confident formal written skills for addition. Now, initially we would work with concrete items to add two amounts together. So we would take two groups of things and combine them and do verbal counting. But when we get to the point where we're ready to use a written method, we would start with a number line. We'd simply draw a number line, and initially we'd start with adding a smaller number. So for example, we could take 32, add 7. We'd put the biggest number at the start of the number line, and we would count jumps, so 32, and then add 7 jumps, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we would count up out loud, so 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39 to get to our answer. Then when we've progressed from there, we would then look at adding larger numbers using the principle of partitioning. So for example, if we were doing 41 add 65, we'd put the biggest number first on the number line. We would partition the other amounts into 40 and 1. And then we would do a large jump to add the tens. And we could do 4 individual large jumps, or when children are more confident mentally, they could do a bigger one to represent adding 40. So 65 add 40 would be 105. And then we would add on the ones, in this case just 1, with a smaller jump to get to 106. And that's how we develop the number line. When we were ready, we would then move on to formal written method. Initially, we would start with a column method where we're not required to carry. So for example, 32 add 45. Initially, we'd label the place value columns if needed, just to emphasize the fact that we line up the place value. So we'd be saying 2 add 5 is 7. And then we look at the tens column, we talk about 3 tens add 4 tens is 7 tens. And then we'd emphasise the fact that that's 30 add 40 equals 70. When we've moved from that, we'd then have a look at amounts where we'd need to carry. So for example, tens and ones, (17) add 16. So we'd say 7 ones add 6 ones is 13, which is 3 ones and 1 10. And then 1 10 add 1 10 add an extra 10 would be 3 tens or 30. From that point, we would then look at more complicated variations on this idea. So for example, we would look at where we would have mixed place value columns. So for example, 645 add 528. So by increasing the place value columns, so 5 add 8 is 13, which is 3 ones and 1 10. 4 tens add 2 tens add 1 10 is 7 tens or 70. 600 add 500 is 11 hundreds, which is 100 and 1000. And because they don't have any further to carry, we would put it in the next column. We'd also look at where we have mixed amounts of columns. So for example, 347 add 29. And with that, we just emphasise, and that's why these initial labels are so important, that in 29, that 2 is in the tens column. So it needs to line up in the tens column. 7 add 9 is 16. 4 tens add 2 tens add 1 10 is 7 tens or 70. Then we'd look at 300s add, and there's nothing in this column, so it would be 300s add no hundreds, or 0 hundreds is 300. And then finally, we'd look at this with decimals. So for example, 2.45 add 5.9. Now when it's with decimals, we do encourage them to put zero placeholders if it helps to ensure they line up their columns correctly. So 5 hundredths add no hundredths is 5 hundredths. 4 tenths add 9 tenths is 13 tenths, which is 3 tenths and 1 whole. Bring the decimal point down. 2 add 5 is 7, add an extra 1 is 8. And that's the journey the children would take to learn and develop their addition skills.